Dude, I'd rock out with that, man.
What is going on, everyone? Once again, welcome to Flyer and Ice Pod. I am Dan Green with Vance, Mr. Smooth crew, Nikki Nuts, Crisco. We are powered by the Heat Ratio Sports Network. We are sponsored by Fuse Barbershop and our new sponsor, NV Streams. Ladies and gentlemen,
Woo!
NV Streams will make you cut the cord. It will make you not consider YouTube. It will make you not consider Hulu Live. NV Streams, thousands upon thousands of channels, reasonable prices, and unbelievable customer service. Check them out. NV Streams.
Love it.
702@gmail. If you have any questions, reach out to them. NV Streams, 702.com, the website. A must-have.
The Nick Vance stream.
Well, I think it's.
I'm kidding.
I think it's. I'm not sure what the NV stands for. Nevada, perhaps. But anyway, they're phenomenal. I've been using them, and the positive, it's overwhelming how many channels you have. But you come up with a system on how to save your channels. But NV Streams is a must. Check them out. So again, we are Flyers and Ice. Please check us out on all podcasting sites, Apple, Spotify, iHeart. We're everywhere. Subscribe on YouTube to the Heat Ratio Sports Network and follow us. And here we go. So, gentlemen, the Flyers just finished a 3-game road trip. Not just, they've had a few days off. And I think before we started before we ended our last year, we kind of had a prediction on how we thought they would have done. And I think we were all in the 1-1-1, or, one win, one flat out loss, maybe a loss in overtime. We all kind of went with chalk, with Edmonton being the loss. And we probably thought we'd have a bounce back against Vancouver. And I was concerned with Calgary because they were on a tear. They hadn't not had a lead in like 5 or 6 games entering the contest against the Flyers. So they concerned me, and it was justifiable. So I think I was in the 1 win, 1 loss, and 1 overtime loss mode. But I would have been wrong. And I'm glad to say this year I would have been wrong, because the Flyers are proving me wrong, more so than not. And I love eating crow with this hockey team. So I'll start with you, Nikki Nuts. What were your thoughts on the Western Canadian road trip, and how do you think they looked in particular against Edmonton?
First and foremost, I did go 3-2 last week in the Canadian series. I also think they played remarkable getting out of their zone. Calgary is a fast team, and they're a hot team. I thought they would have a letdown in that game. So, of course, I did say Edmonton, they would lose Edmonton and then win Vancouver and Calgary, because I thought they would have a letdown game, but it was the other way around. They played remarkable. They're a good squad, and their coach is really good. I think he coaches very well. Sutter.
Oh yeah, Sutter's a damn good coach. I mean, he won cups with the Kings. He was a legendary captain when he played. Vance, Edmonton. Were you surprised how the Flyers hung in with them?
Based off of what I've seen so far this year, then no. I think the Flyers pretty much held serve and pretty much outplayed Edmonton. They outshot them, 37-34. I believe they outhit them. They won the faceoff battle. So they pretty much won in every facet of the game. And again, what they did defensively, they allowed Hart to see the puck, although he did have a chance to make a few really good stops on Draisaitl and McDavid in particular. I think he saw the puck really, really well, and the guys in front of him played well. So the Flyers had a great game that game. They did everything that they needed to do to win.
No, I agree. They had a lot of jump. And one of my questions, which I'll get to later about team speed, we'll address, but their team speed is really impressing me as well. I thought the Vancouver game was just a really good hockey game. It was a really tight hockey game that could have gone either way. The statistics were like straight across the board, identical. In fact, I think that was the only game this year that the Flyers have lost the faceoff battle to any team. That's how good the Flyers are with faceoffs. And Nick, before you joined us, Vance and I always would address the importance of faceoffs. So that's a stat that I really truly believe in. Imagine how bad the Flyers would have been last year if they were a great faceoff team last year as well. That's the first step of getting the puck out of your zone.
Mm-hmm.
So so to win the game against Vancouver after losing the faceoff battle was quite impressive. And Calgary, I understand your logic on that about, thinking that Calgary would have a letdown, but the Flyers also had the end of the road trip potential letdown. And like I said, Calgary is just on fire. They were as hot as their logo. So, but again, if all of us would have taken a 2-1 road trip,
yes,
I think we would have said, "Sign me up." So they're 2-1, and based on that series, gentlemen, which players stood out for you on that road trip? And on the opposite end of the spectrum, which ones did you feel, were a little too quiet or might be trending in the quiet direction? I'll start with you, Nicky Nuts. Who stood out for you and who seems to be quiet?
I think Ristolainen started stepping up in the defensive role. I thought he played a big role in the Vancouver game. He's the guy that we had like questions about because he was coming off an injury. He made a couple really bad passes when he first came back, but I think he's sliding right into that role that we need him to be as an enforcer defenseman. And I think he's been playing solid. As far as the guy that I need gone is Braun. He is horrible.
Wow.
He's not showing me anything.
There was no bigger Braun, anti-Braun guy than me, but I have to say, I disagree with you, Nicky Nuts.
Really?
I think Braun has played very solid this year. No, I completely disagree. I wanted him moved on for some of the younger kids, but I think he's been really solid. Am I crazy, Vance, or is our friend Nicky Nuts consistently crazy, Vance? Love you, Nicky.
No, I think we could all watch a game and see something a little bit different, but I tend to agree more with you, Dan. I think he's been solid so far, not spectacular.
Yeah, never spectacular.
When you're talking about a third pairing defenseman, right? You just want him not to hurt you, and right now he's not hurting you. So, I think he's fine for the role that he's in.
No, but I get what you're see, Nick. I think what you're seeing is exactly what Vance said. There's nothing flashy.
Yeah, but
exactly. He's not giving the puck away. He's not looking lost out there. In fact, your point to Ristolainen, I agree with you. Prior to that little road trip, he was a little loosey-goosey with the puck. And Nick Tossi, by the way, Nick the Scout is at the game scouting for us tonight. So that's why he's not with us. But Nick the Scout was referencing how Risto does what he calls the suicide pass, where he just wraps it around the board quickly at almost like I don't, get it off my stick, and then the forwards get buried along the wall by the opposing team, forechecking. So if take a look when you see a defenseman that is stressing out or is not on his game, watch for the wraparound pass along the board. That to me is an indication of fear. I don't want the puck on my stick.
Or they're still injured.
Yeah, and I think Ristolainen hopefully is gradually getting healthier. There's no doubt that there was something wrong with him. He still hasn't destroyed people along the boards like he had in Buffalo. And I think once he's fully healthy, we'll see that back in his play as well. Now, Vance, were there any guys on the road trip that jumped out at you and that you feel were a little quiet?
To be honest, I thought the top three lines played really, really good. I mean, we can always talk about that bottom line, but I even think the guy McEwen, he looks pretty He looks pretty solid to me.
He just doesn't hurt you out there.
He doesn't hurt you, and he plays a nice hard game along the boards. The good thing about this year, guys, so far through X amount of games, what have they played? 8 games, I believe. If we can only point to, guys on the fourth line like Knack not playing well and needing to be moved out of the lineup, that's a good sign. Because coming into the series, what we knew is your best players needed to play their best in order for you to win 2 of these 3 games, and that's exactly what happened. They got really good games from Atkinson, Couturier, Giroux, Farabee. All of those guys played really, really well, and that's how they were going to go on this road trip and win this road trip. So, yeah, I think more guys have played well, and more guys are trending in a positive direction than guys that I could look at and say he's not really playing well. I think it goes along with that old line, all boats rise together.
No, that's a great line. And I'll tell you, the guy that's impressed me the most this year is Claude Giroux. How many times, even in his heyday, did he have that slow start where he was clinching the stick really tight? Like he hadn't scored that first goal yet to like the 5th or 6th game. The guy started off the season in consecutive, it was a 6 or 7 game point streak. So, and when you do that, your confidence is just going to be flying. Now, a guy that I'm not concerned with, but Farabee has slowed down a little bit. He was on fire. So, I want him to be that steady presence where I don't want to see too many games in a row without a goal, if you know what I mean, Vance, where you just got to get goals out of him. But I think he'll be fine. Again, I'm very pleased. I'm very pleased.
Dan, I think.
Go ahead, Nick.
I think TK needs to be a little bit more consistent. There's some games where it just looks like he just mails it in, and I would like a more consistent game out of him on every night basis. That's what I saw in him. So, and it was even last year. He had a really good week, and then he takes off like a half a week. And I would really love to see him be more consistent of a player throughout the entire playing time. Sometimes there's lines where you're like, you didn't even know he was on the ice, and that's a problem.
No, you're right. You wanted him to be the presence that Farabee and Atkinson are every game. Yep. I totally get that. But Vance, would you agree though? If he's not scoring, he better at least show up in the back check, which was a big flaw of his last year. And I believe he's at least doing that. Vance?
Yeah, I agree. I think he's a higher energy player. Sometimes when you're playing well, it doesn't always result in goals, or scoring chances. But I think he, the one thing that I can say about Konechny from what I've seen with him this year is he looks responsible.
The back check,
really, all you can ask from a player game in and game out is for him to be responsible. And this team, from top to bottom, it's the biggest difference from this year to last year. They all seem to know what their roles are and that they're all responsible. Billy.
William Phillips checking in. We appreciate you, William. Thank you so much. Yeah, so again, for viewers that enjoy our show, that maybe like the banter but aren't hockey experts, and we don't claim to be hockey experts. We just watch a lot of hockey. Are we coaching, at the junior level, college? No. But again, I referenced the suicide pass. Watch for defensemen that just wrap it around the boards quickly. And to Nick's point, yeah, if Konechny isn't scoring often, then I want you to keep your eye on is at least back checking well. Is he defensively responsible? And Nick and
he has
used the word responsible, and that's important because last year he was neither at times. So that's what I want you to look out for. Is any player that you're focusing on for goal scoring, check out their responsibility on defense. And that's just as important. Our main man, Al, checking in.
What's up, Al?
Al will check in and then fade away real fast. just to let us know he's around.
I love it, though.
We love Al.
I love it.
Check out Half Court Heat. That'll be back soon with Al, Andre, and Tony, the best in the business. All right, so we're moving right along here. We're moving right along. So do you believe, and I think I already know the answer to this question, do you think the loss to Calgary will roll off their back or be of concern to the coaching staff? Did they see something they might not have liked on film and it caused concern, or is it just one of those games, Vance? What do you think?
I think it's just one of those games. I think the Flyers, if I'm not mistaken, they played 3 games in 4 nights, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's one of those things. You're on a Western Conference road trip. You're playing late. You have 1 game off, and 1 day off in 4 days, and it catches up to you after a while, and you run into a really hot team like Calgary who's playing really, really well. So, I just think it's one of those things. It's the ebb and flow of the season, the peaks and valleys. These are the things that happen. As far as how they move forward, I think that's a big part of the reason why they made the trades that they made this offseason to get rid of guys like Voracek and some of the other guys, because bringing in more veterans like Atkinson and Ellis and guys like that, I don't think complacency is going to set in with this group the way that it did with groups in the past, because guys have been here year in and year out, outlived the coaches, outlived the GM. So I think this is a different team this year.
No, I agree. You can't every time a team loses, say the sky is falling. So I totally agree. I just wanted to pose a question. Nick, are you in agreement as well?
Yeah, I definitely am. And as long as they're blocking shots for this goalie, which is a huge difference between last year and this year, when they're doing that, they're giving all kinds of time to react, to deal with rebounds. I think that's the biggest part of their game right now is they're all buying into blocking shots for this goalie, and whoever goalie is in there, they're playing well, whichever goalie is in, and they're not like going one way or another. It's pretty much the same as far as being on the defensive end of the ice, which is awesome to see.
No, I believe what the Calgary game at first. Correct me if I'm wrong, gents. I believe it was like 5 minutes left in the period, and Calgary had 3 shots. We had 2 shots, and I think each team at one point blocked. Each team blocked almost 20 shots that game. It was insane. Both teams were. I mean, listen, we lost 4-0, but it was a close game until the end. It wasn't like it was a blowout.
Yeah,
they just wore us down. There's no doubt about it. They were the better hockey club that night. But Nick, to your point, they're selling out.
Mm-hmm.
And to Vance's point, they're giving Hart and Jones a better vision in front of the net. So everything that defense needs to do, giving your goalies a line of vision, back checking, selling out, blocking shots. This team is buying in and doing it. So tonight we have the Arizona Coyotes. In my opinion, the worst team in hockey.
Bet the over.
They have, I believe, 14 goals in 9 games, like 1.4 goals per game. They're minus 25 in goal differential. They're just not a good hockey team. Now, gentlemen, William referenced the he mentioned the Flyers over 5 goals tonight. That's all well and good. Is there any chance they take this team lightly? I'll start with you, Nicky Nuts.
Well, in the last right now, the Coyotes are 100% on the over. So if anybody is looking at the odds, I think it's 5.5 goals total for the game. They've been 100% in the over category. So that's why I think the over is a good play if you're a betting man.
Well, first of all, good point, Nick and Leslie. Love the comment.
Thank you, Leslie.
Leslie's saying, I'm a silent viewer, but I thought I'd say hello. Love watching you guys. Not a hockey expert, but enjoy watching the game. I'm actually learning a lot from you. That comment means a lot. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And William is agreeing spot on with you, Nick. I think he thinks it's going to be a rout and a high-scoring game for the Flyers. Vance, what are your thoughts on the Coyotes and potentially taking them lightly?
Well, the Coyotes are what you call coyote ugly, right?
Yep.
Yeah, I don't think the Flyers take them lightly tonight, especially coming off, maybe if they had, won the first 2 games in or won the first game, maybe lost the second game and won the third game, maybe they take them a little bit lightly. But again, it goes back to the point that I made earlier. I think that's why they made the trades that they made, not to get complacent this year. So I think ultimately, that's why they win this game. I think they have a group of veterans that are hungry. They've got new guys here who want to win. So, this game I think I think it'll be a fairly easy game for them.
I mean, their goalie's not bad. Kirill Vejmelko, he's not a bad goalie. He's an athletic kid, and I believe Carter Hart starts tonight. So I'm glad to see that they're not, saying let's play Jones tonight and sit hard. I like the fact they're starting Carter Hart. And it's a little post Halloween, but we have a little bit of a theme. We have the return of the ghost tonight, right? So that'll be interesting. I wish no ill towards Gostisbehere. I just want him to turn the puck over for us.
Then we're guaranteed at least 2 turnovers.
He has to be consistent. It's only fair.
I agree.
All right. So now, again, I don't want us to look ahead. We have a nice, hopefully complete game tonight, a nice win, and we'll go with Williams' predictions. Let's say it's going to be like a 6-1, 6-2 type of game. Now we go on the road and face Pittsburgh and then Washington. Vance, I'll start with you. What are your thoughts on that little mini road trip on the, we're staying bus ride distance. What are your thoughts on those 2 games?
I think that's tough, but I think, again, what we're looking for is a split. Whether it's Pittsburgh or Washington, you're looking for a split. And more so than anything, you're looking for the Flyers to really go up and play well. Ultimately at this time of year, guys, like I've kind of like changed the way that I look at the season. I look at it by quarters. So I think if the Flyers go there and go 1-1 or even play well, I think that bodes well for them in the future.
No, and I'm in a complete agreement. I think they definitely take the Pittsburgh game, and Washington's playing like an elite team this year. And you almost have to have the mentality. Listen, I know you have to steal wins on the road, but if you're a damn good hockey team, which Washington is, it's no crime to lose in their barn if they're a damn good hockey team. Do you know what I'm saying? So a split would not be a horrible thing. Nicky Nuts, your thoughts?
I think Pittsburgh is always a coin flip. That it just makes me nervous. They always play tight with each other, and that could go either way. Washington, I always think they just have our number. I hate the fact that I feel that way, but it just they always feel like they struggle at some point in the game that makes the Washington look so much better than us. And so I hope that we go 1-1 with those 2 games.
You know why they always have our number, Nick? They've always been a better team the past 10 years.
Yeah.
They're just a fine hockey team. I mean, listen, they've been a Stanley Cup contender for years now. And they're aging like a fine wine, aren't they, Vance?
Yeah, they are. I mean, their guys, Ovechkin doesn't show any signs of slowing down. I mean, Oshie's still playing really, really well. Yeah,
I think he was hurt last game, though.
They're a really good hockey team. And they, their supplemental players, the guys that they surround them with, all play really well too, and all the talented. So yeah, they're a good team.
And the same can be said for Pittsburgh. They had many stretches without Malkin and Crosby, and they've drafted well, and they have nice complementary players as well. And that's one of the things we discussed last week with Toronto having 5 guys pretty much hogging over 50% of the salary cap. Your complementary players won't necessarily be there. And it's almost like NFL when the quarterbacks get all that money. It's like the rest of the team suffers with depth, but the teams that have balanced depth and have good contracts seem to be the teams that will go the long distance, or go the distance, I should say. So let's William, man, you got to show up more often. Ovechkin is the dude to score as well. I remember them being one of the best comeback teams. Listen, that guy in today's hockey, considering he's going to I think he recently passed Marcel Dion, and he's on his way to pass who was it?
Mark Messier?
No, I'm not. He was like 2 goals away. The bottom line in today's NHL, where goaltending can sometimes outshine the offensive game or defense. I mean, when I was growing up in the 80s as a young, elementary kid to a teenager, I mean, I always say this: you rolled out of bed and scored 150 points. Howard Chuck had 150 points. Al McGinnis, a defenseman, had well over 100 points. Obviously, Lemieux and Gretzky were always pushing 200 points. So for Ovechkin to be this prolific a goal scorer, it's just phenomenal in today's age of hockey. He might be the greatest pure goal scorer. Forget about what the final numbers say, considering the era he's playing in. He is that dynamite. I mean, he's just dynamite goal scorer.
He's been healthy for the most part too.
Yeah, well, that's
huge.
Well, he probably has a phenomenal conditioning program.
Some people
and today's athletes, they age very well.
You can't hurt Russia. Can't hurt Russians.
Yeah, I guess a lot of vodka and working out.
Exactly.
Yeah,
I got a question for you.
Okay.
And this goes back to like the goalie, the thing. Would you rather have 2 goalies that are like tandem, or would you rather have that really star goalie that you throw a ton of money at? What would you prefer? Because I personally would rather have the two goalies that are reliable and use the money elsewhere versus having a premier goalie like, let's say, Tampa Bay's goalie, Vasilevsky. I know I'm saying that wrong,
Vasilevsky.
What? How do you guys feel about that? Do you guys?
Listen, the Flyers have ignored goaltending for years, right? Since a young Hextall, have we really felt confident long term with a goalie? Boucher was the next thing. Didn't turn out that way. Czech Monik, could he be the next Dominik Hasek for us? Didn't turn out that way. The bottom line is they got Hart signed to a really modest contract considering. And Vance, if you recall, we had a guest that behind the scenes said he probably he turned down money that he probably regrets.
Right.
And then he had that bad year. And we can't reveal the guest because we don't want to that's like kind of inside information. He turned down a pretty big contract before he started wetting the bed last year. So we have hopefully our goalie under a reasonable contract. Now, my love affair for Igor Shesterkin. He's splitting time with Georgiev. So I like the 1-2 punch to some extent. I really, if Martin Jones, God willing, he'll have a great year for us. But if Martin Jones started off just stale, I would have loved to have a young duo of Hart and Sandstrom in goal. But do I want $9 million tied up in any position in goaltending? I don't know. So I'm gonna say I think we lucked out. Let's hope Hart bounces back and just becomes a damn good goalie, and we have him for $4 million a year, I believe. So we have him at a reasonable price. Vance, your thoughts?
I think the goalie tandem works really well in the regular season. I think when you get to the playoffs, I think you need that guy. You saw it in Vegas, when they tried to go back and forth between Fleury and Lerner last year, that it really didn't work out so well. I think you have to pick that guy, when you're going into the playoffs that you're going to ride and win with. I just don't. I think it works great during the regular season, and it's 82 games, and you really need it. But when you get to the playoffs, you have to ride the hottest hand.
Right, and Richard brings up a good point, and he's agreeing with Vance. You do have the premier goalies that like the Carey Harts of the world that you can ride their coattails to the playoffs. But I also could counter that, Richard, with the 2010 Flyers. It was Boucher and Layton were spectacular that playoff season. I remember a year where Kevin Weeks was spectacular for the Hurricanes and took them on a deep playoff run. So yeah, you can have. Listen, if Carter Hart didn't have that blip last year and he was making $7 million a year and he was our goalie, listen, you've heard Nick and I talk about ride the hot goalie and mix in the backup, maybe on back-to-backs or against a weak opponent, and so it's tough. Wasn't there the rumor that Seattle was going to make a play for Carey Price when Montreal didn't protect him. Now, I don't know if Montreal did that because they anticipated his personal problems coming to light, and they just wanted to get out of his contract. But ultimately, Seattle didn't. I mean, Grubauer was a great acquisition at a much lower price than Carey Price. But that's an interesting question. Ultimately, I want a great goaltender. And to quantify a goalie's qualities based on his contract, you could say there's some overpriced goalies too. But yeah, I mean, hopefully we have that goalie and we have him at a reasonable price. And real fast before I forget to move on, I wanted to bring this up with Calgary, and the goaltending topic is triggering it for me. Vance, who did I pick last year to win the Vezina Trophy? See, I remember your pick. You just don't remember my story.
I can't remember. Dude.
I picked Jacob Markstrom.
Okay.
And you know why I picked Jacob Markstrom? You saw him the other night. Now, granted, the Flyers they didn't have any high intense scoring opportunities. I think they had a total of 20 shots on goal, but the dude's got 3 shutouts already. He's a 6'6" goalie, I believe. Just a really damn good goalie. So, and I'm Richard, maybe you could look this up for me, what his contract is, Jacob Markstrom. But if he's making $8-9 million a year, there's your answer. Yeah, you ride a goalie like that, and Calgary's a hellebuck for Winnipeg. They have their established number one goalies, and then you have the Georgiev and Shesterkin platoon, as it were. More Shesterkin now. Wasn't it befuddling how they started Georgiev the first game, Vance, and Shesterkin's taken over and it got like almost a 950 save percentage.
Yeah, Shesterkin, to me, I mean, I think he proved last year that he was always the superior player,
right,
between the two. So that's a little odd. And by the way, Markstrom is $6 million per year.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I'll take a $6 million. I would take that in a heartbeat for a goalie like that versus a $9 million goalie. Markstrom's when he's on, he's as good as it gets. So and the Capitals kind of have like a platoon system, as it were. So Nick, your point is very valid. It's really what is your preference, Nick?
I like the 2 goalies, to be honest with you, that are playing equally or one is slightly better, because I think that gives you the freedom to go out and sign a free agent like a Eckel. It gives you more options to wheel and deal if you have 2 solid goaltenders and you're not throwing a ton of money into just one goalie and riding them all year long. What if he gets hurt? You always have that backup that you can hold at least half the time that the guy's out. I mean, that really helps. I mean, what do we have? We had like 5 goalies last year. At one point,
it was the year before. The year before the bubble.
Yes,
we had like the most goalies in the history of the league dressed. So. But no, it's interesting. I mean, again, if you have a goalie that is making $8-9 million a year for 6 years and they go south on you, then you have you have Brizgalov all over again. So it's kind of it's a damned if you do, damned if you don't moment. Richard,
that's why I just brought it up because I was curious to see how you guys felt about that, because I heard a question today and it sparked my mind saying, you know what, I kind of like the way we have it. I think we're doing I like that, having two goalies that you could put in at any given time and have them produce.
Well, the thing is, and Richard, thank you. 6 for 36. I'll take that every day of the week for a stud goaltender. Versus, I think Price is making what, 8 or 9, Vance?
I believe so.
But honestly, Nick, let's face it, Carter Hart's the guy. I mean, Martin Jones is going to get spot starts. Carter Hart's the guy.
Wow, Vance, did you hear that? He said Carter Hart's the guy.
Oh,
words I never thought I'd hear him say, Nicky Nuts.
I know, right?
I don't believe him to be the guy, but that's the, I think, the mindset the Flyers have.
I love hearing it, though.
Listen, if you go down the goalie list, there's a lot of guys I'd rather have on this team than Carter Hart. And I'm not trying to be a jerk and a hater. I mean, I want the kid to do well. I'm not feeling it like everybody else.
So Dan, let me ask you a question. So with that being said, do you think sometimes in Philadelphia, I know we have a tendency to overrate our players, but do you think that sometimes we look at a guy like Carter Hart and maybe we underrate him? Because, Nick Tosti says all the time how good he believes Carter Hart really is. But because we see his warts, we see him play every night, we judge him a little bit more harshly than we would a guy from another team.
No. Real fast. Look at the number that Price is making. That's insane. That's almost $11 million a year. That's insane. So, yeah. That's now you know why he was left unprotected. Vance, I think all of Nick's commentary was based on his junior performance and his history as a young great goaltender. It hasn't manifested yet in the pros other than his initial call up, right? The stretch where he played for us. His first, the bubble year, he was damn good. But I need to see it put together, for a stretch of years. And, this year, I have a critical eye. There's no doubt about it. My eye is critical. He's played solid. I don't think he's played great, but he's played solid. I mean, he was just got awful last year. Combination with the poor defense, I get it. And I think the poor defense destroyed his confidence. There's no doubt about it. But as Richard referenced, he also let in some just god-awful goals, which I think goes back to the confidence because of the horrific defense.
That's what Al Morganti said.
Yeah, but
he said that exact statement.
Right. But hopefully he can bounce back. And Al also said, Al said, based on the people I talked to, I think he'll bounce back.
Right.
Al didn't commit to himself saying, Al Morganti, have faith in him. He said, the people I talk to, the people I trust, said he'll bounce back. And Nick's one of those guys because Nick actually saw him play. That's why he's Nick the Scout. All right, let's move on. That was an intriguing question, Nicky Nuts, and thank you for bringing it to our attention. So I brought this up earlier. The West always appears to be a faster conference. How do you think we looked in the speed department when we played them, Vance, in those 3 games?
To me, it wasn't a noticeable difference. Mainly, do I think the Flyers are a little bit better skating team this year? I believe that they are. Atkinson, I think, is a good skater. Yandle's still a good skater for his age. Ellis, when he's playing, is a good skater. I think the difference is that the Flyers have just cut down on their mistakes. And we talked about it last week. When you're able to move the puck and you're able to put the puck on a guy, you're gonna look faster because you're not stopping your momentum, to stop and get the puck, or you're not stepping back to get the puck or anything like that. So the Flyers, to me, they've done all of the little things well, and that makes them look faster to me.
And Vance, to your point, and I've answered this question to a lot of people, it always seems like the Flyers have that alternating pattern of making the playoffs or not making the playoffs. And people always go, when you watch the playoff, isn't it like watching a different brand of hockey than when the Flyers play? And my response is, well, playoff teams are there for a reason. They probably make great outlet passes in their defensive zone. They probably hit players in stride, and not make passes in the guy's skates.
Yep.
And we've referenced it before. The analogy of a good crisp pass in hockey is a quarterback leading the receiver in stride so he can run after the catch. Same thing applies in hockey. If you have tic-tac-toe passing, your team will look faster. You'll get to openings faster. So the Flyers aren't necessarily a slow team. They just were not a crisp passing team last year.
Agree 100%.
Because when you see Lawton sometimes rev up his engine, JVR rev up his engines, they can skate. Atkinson obviously can skate. So they have some skaters. They just have to be more crisp with their precision.
I think they got rid of a lot of the guys that weren't crisp on their passes, like Jake Voracek and Ghost. They always ended up passing to the skate or 2 feet in front of the guy. I think that's a huge difference between last year's team and this year's team. The tic-tac-toe passing and not knowing, like, having that anxiety watching a game as they're taking off up the ice and they pass it way too front of them and it ends up being an icing. That's a huge difference in the way you play a game.
And Richard is right on point with us. A lot of it is the quality of passing, and Richard also brings up a point which I need to address. The one thing, and you guys will be able to fill in the blank in a second. Man, it's the one thing that they have to clean up, and they've kind of been fortunate, is what?
The penalty killing?
No, not the penalty killing. The penalties.
The penalties,
their penalty killing's been pretty damn. If their penalty killing wasn't good, they'd be in deep trouble. I mean, they had. Didn't they give the Oilers like 7 power plays, or Florida 7 power plays?
Yes.
I mean, you can't survive in the NHL getting dominated, giving up more penalties and having power play opportunities. It's just going to bite you. And then when you play teams like Florida and Edmonton and give them too many power play opportunities, you are playing with fire. And they lucked out against those teams as far as, I mean, they lost ultimately to Florida, but it wasn't because of giving up power plays. In fact, they scored shorthanded against them. But my God, they got to clean that up. And maybe we should chart this, Vance. How have they been since Nick Aube-Kubel has been out of the lineup with their penalties? He's usually left for a couple stupid ones a game, and a turnover could lead to his teammate having a stupid penalty to cover up for him. Now I got to hook the guy to some extent. All right. So our next question, we pretty much addressed the Flyers. They had a really solid road trip. We'd like to think an easy game tonight, as it were. Again, there's no easy games in professional sports, right? But they should come out on top, especially at home, especially with rest. We know they have 2 tough games with Pittsburgh and Washington. We think they'll probably split, which wouldn't be an awful thing. So let's talk about the NHL. Gentlemen, are there any players, and I'll start with you, Vance, are there any players in the NHL right now that are jumping out at you as, wow, typical great year, I didn't see this coming, a kind of a no-name guy that stepped up and you're like, wow, look at this guy? Anyone's really jumping out at you? I have a couple guys on my list. Vance, who's jumping out at you?
These aren't no-name guys, but when you look at the LA Kings and you see what Kopitar's doing, like he continues to play well year in and year out, no matter who's around him. We don't really get to see him a lot because he plays out on the West Coast, but he's a really, really good hockey player. Really good hockey player. And a guy that I think is really taking a step so far this year, who I was actually going to get his jersey last year, is Kyle Connor.
Yeah. I love him and his one-timer.
From Winnipeg. From Winnipeg. I think he's pretty much like at over a point per game.
Yep.
So far, I think through 7 or 8 games, he's got 14 points. So he's a guy that I see, taking the next step on that team.
Nope, I couldn't agree with you more. And for me, I'll get to you, Nicky Nuts. For me, as far as skaters go, now listen, not all these guys are assist generators, but I think Chris Kreider's had a terrific year for the Rangers. And the 2 guys in Calgary that are just, listen, as great as Calgary has been, they've really been a 2-person train. Kachuk's starting to get his mojo going, but Elias Lindholm and Mangiapane. Now, Mangiapane is a name that a lot of people don't know, but those two guys have really stepped it up. And I have to go with our very own Cam Atkinson. He's come here with a lot of pressure. Listen, this team had a bunch of acquisitions. They got rid of a beloved Jacob Voracek. A lot of fans love Jake Voracek. A lot of fans were probably okay to see him go, but he was also, but he was a veteran that a lot of people liked. Bottom line is Atkinson comes to a team that had a miserable year, and he's lived up to the hype. So those four guys, Kreider, Lindholm, Mangiapane, and our very own Cam Atkinson have been stalwarts for me this season thus far as the skaters. Nicky Nuts, your people.
Yeah, I was going to say the two guys from Calgary as well.
Okay.
Those guys, they stood out in my mind. I think they skate very, very well. And I didn't even really know who they were before we played them. And I was like, whoa, they stood out. And Johnny Hockey, I mean, he played awesome too. But he's known as a good player. I mean, he's a phenomenal player. I wish we would just pluck him and put him on this team, but that's wishful thinking.
Well, I believe Johnny Hockey and Tkachuk are free agents after this year, so Calgary has to make some decisions. And again, Vance, I don't want to get into the what and the whys, but we did have someone that said the Flyers don't have any interest in Johnny Hockey. Remember we had that guest?
Yes.
So
yep.
I don't want to elaborate as to why, or honestly, I don't even remember his reasoning as to why, but he didn't see that as a marriage that was going to ever happen. Now, from the goalie's point of view, now you know me, Vance, I'm all about save percentage. That's just a stat that I won in my goaltender. And again, I go back to Jacob Markstrom, 957 save percentage. I mean, that's ungodly good. Right behind him, Frederik Andersen, 956. Last I looked, Carolina was 8-0, Vance. And you said it. The NHL did us no favors by putting them in our division. My man Igor Shesterkin, 947.
Yes.
So and then that those are it's the season's still early. When it's kind of like in baseball when a guy's batting 450 the first month of the season, the batting average is going to drop, right, Vance?
Yeah.
Save percentage is not going to stay around 950 all year, but these guys are on fire right now from the goaltending point of view. What goalies are really jumping out at you, Vance?
Yeah, so Anderson, correct me if I'm wrong. Wasn't he with the Maple Leafs in the past?
There's Craig Anderson and Frederik Andersen.
I think Frederik Andersen was with the Maple Leafs. If I'm not
Craig
mistaken.
Anderson was the old goaltender that was used last year by Washington. You remember?
Right.
Yeah, Frederik Andersen is the Anderson you want.
Yeah, so Anderson, I think through 7 games has only given up 9 goals.
Yeah.
He's at 1.29 per game. That's pretty ridiculous. I mean,
but what's a go-to, Vance? What's a go-to? You mentioned it. It goes to their team structure and their defensive structure,
and they have one of the best defensive units in the league.
They made Peter Mrazek look like a really good goaltender again. With Carolina, right?
They did.
Peter Mrazek was one of our 10 goalies 3 years ago.
Yep.
And he didn't show anything, right? So, but yeah. That being said, you guys still gotta stop the puck, right? But the defensive structure that Carolina plays, Vance, Mr. Smooth Crew, and pads would have a 930 save percentage. I guarantee it. I guarantee it. Nicky Nuts, who is jumping out at you?
I say Bob. Bob is playing phenomenal with Florida. I think he is one of the top 4 goalies right now going. And then I can't say the guy's name, but the New York Rangers goalie. Yank it. I won't even try. I'll embarrass myself.
Wait. My favorite goalie on the Rangers.
Yes, yours. Yes.
Shesterkin. You can't say Shesterkin.
Yeah,
Don't
no,
say it. Don't say
Shesterkin.
it. It's the family show. Don't say.
Yeah, right.
Don't say Shesterkin's name
But
wrong.
those two goalies are really popping for me and jumping off the page every time
right.
I see them play. They are. And who would have thought Bob is still killing it today after being in the league for what, 12 years now?
Listen. I mean, what Lundqvist played solid hockey till he was 37, 38. All those guys. Again, these are athletes that have the sports science of today behind them. The proper eating, conditioning. Back in the day, players would come to training camp just to get in shape. These guys are 24/7 athletic machines. And Bob's only 33 years old. And again, I'll say this till I'm blue in the face. The two goalies that to me are clones are Shesterkin and Bobrovsky. Shesterkin's a young Bobrovsky. They've got those telescopic legs that come out of nowhere. It's like go gadget legs activate, and they just shoot out and make saves.
Yeah, so, Richard said it was he has a 944 save percentage.
Yeah, Bobrovsky is on fire. Listen, Richard, if you know anything about me, by season's end, I'm not satisfied with my goalie unless they have a 920 save percentage. Right? I've said that with Vance a number of times. So we're in the upper stratosphere of 940 and above right now. You know, again, let's make it somewhat similar to baseball, where the batting average isn't going to stay above 400 throughout the season. But you know, these guys are going to be in the 9.3s, low 9.4s, the equivalent of maybe batting 380 for the season. That's how good some of these goalies are. And again, it goes back to Vance's point. The defensive structure of a team will and can make a goalie great. That being said, that goes out the window in the playoffs.
It sure does.
What goalie Vance always is great in the regular season and doesn't perform well in the playoffs? You picked him as your Vezina candidate this year.
Fleury.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
I would never fear Fleury in the playoff series, but he's always a terrific regular season goalie because he's generally on good teams that have great, sound defensive structure. All right, moving on. Let's. Hey, wait a minute, Vance. Wait a minute. Hold on. Let me get rid of the proverbial fancy schmancy and ask you a very important question, Vance. What time is it, Vance?
It's time for the penalty box.
It's time for the penalty box.
Yes. I love that one. I love that.
You know, Richard, as much as I love you for commenting, I wish I had your question off the screen. It was blocking some of our graphics. No. So this penalty box topic was inspired by a rule that I am not fond of this year. Now, I believe a penalty is a penalty, but I believe when ticky-tack is added to certain things, I don't like it. And the cross-checking rule, I think, is going to be a disaster. You know, they're literally going to call it so tight that when you cross-check a guy in the back, it's a penalty. Not even with a lot of anger or energy behind it. And I don't like the rule. So it is a rule that I'm not thrilled with. I don't know how long it'll stick. And I guarantee when crunch time and playoffs happen,
it'll be bye-bye.
It won't be called as intense. But here it triggered this penalty box topic. Great rule changes for the betterment of the sport, unlike the cross-check penalty. So eliminating the skate in the crease. As Flyer fans, ladies and gentlemen, we had two Bulls named Lindros and Leclerc in the mid-90s that must have had 20 goals a year taken away for having any part of their skate in the blue crease, even if the goalie was on the sideboards in a lounge chair reading a magazine. They took the goal away. So what eliminated that rule? An overtime Stanley Cup goal by the great Brett Hull in the 99 Stanley Cup against the Sabres. And that's the image right there. His foot is in the crease and the puck is in the net. And Buffalo won the cup in overtime. And the following year, that rule was eliminated. If the player had a scoring opportunity without obstructing the goalie, his skate can be in the crease. So that is a rule for the betterment of the game. Vance, what can you tell us about why I believe the calling of hooking is for the betterment of the game?
Dan, I honestly don't remember having much of this conversation with you, so you need to enlighten me.
All right. So this is going to be the Dan penalty box segment. All right.
Yeah, it is.
So, well, if you recall, if you visualize this, you remember they said the passing of the torch when Eric Lindros pulled past Messier and put the puck in the empty net as we eliminated the Rangers to go on to the Stanley Cup against the Detroit Red Wings.
Yes.
What did Lindros do? He caught up from behind and he pulled him by the waist and propelled himself past Messier. A blatant hook. And that's what happened all the time in the NHL. They would hook each other 24/7. And in conjunction with the hooking was the clutching and grabbing. It all came out of the lockout era. And so clutching and grabbing could be a graphic as well. Lindros and Leclerc would be bear hugged behind the net by Odeline, by Danico, by Stevens. You just name it. They were just bear hugged. Now, if you grab the guy's wrist for a second, you get called for holding. And it's freed up the offense and a lot of the clutching and grabbing. So for me, post, lockout, I like these hooking and clutching and grabbing rules. Gentlemen, do you agree with the beneficial rule calling of hooking and clutching and grabbing?
I like it. I like it, but I don't like how they call it. I don't like the fact that a stick can be vertical and they just call it, even though it doesn't touch them. Just because his stick went vertical, they call it. There has to be some sort of contact, and that drives me nuts. But I do like the fact that they do call it, and it's used, but I don't like the way they have it where it's just once the stick goes vertical. They got to change that up where there has to be at least a little bit of contact. And it leaves a lot to refs to encipher whether they did or they didn't. It's tough for refs to call that the way it is because all they see is a vertical stick, and they're like, and then you get 1,000 more power plays.
Vance?
So clutching and grabbing, that's a good topic. I mean, under today's rules, that pretty much cost the Flyers two shots at a cup, I would say, right? Going against the Devils.
Oh my God, yeah. Yeah, I mean, Bobby Holik too he would just maul people. Yeah, so you absolutely, and that's why I've said many times, Lindros in today's game would even be more dynamic than the Lindros of yesteryear, because A, he wouldn't have people running at him because that enforcer mentality is not around anymore, and B, they couldn't hold him and like they did, and say to some extent Leclerc too, so. So you seem to be in favor of Vance, right?
I am indeed.
So another rule that was so much for the betterment of hockey was eliminating the 2-line offside pass. Now, Nick, you might be too young. Now, Vance.
No, I know it.
Okay, so there is a time where if you pass the puck from behind your defensive blue line to a teammate on the other side of the red line, it was an offside pass. It was called a 2-line offside pass because it went over your blue line and over the red line.
Mm-hmm.
And there wasn't even a red line in Europe. So eventually, again, a post-lockout rule, they eliminated the 2-line offside pass. So for the betterment of hockey. And I don't think you guys would argue that that's for the betterment of hockey. Vance.
Yeah, I agree with that, Dan. I agree with that wholeheartedly.
See, Vance doesn't have to say much to say a lot. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Nicky Nuts, your thoughts on?
I absolutely love it.
All right. And another rule that I don't know if you're familiar with this, gentlemen. In the 86-87 season, the tag-up rule was first instituted. And then they got rid of it in the early 2000s. to bring it back, I believe in, I want to say 05. So the tag up rule is a rule where you can dump the puck into your offensive zone. And if a teammate's in the zone, he has time to get out as long as no other players enter the zone. It can't be used, obviously, for scoring opportunities via a pass or while you're stick handling with the puck. But if it's more for a dump-in concept, instead of blowing that whistle, they allow the players to, as it were, leave the zone, which is called tagging up. So Vance had to leave. He had another obligation. But Nicky Nuts, do you like the tag up rule? And do you remember when they temporarily got rid of it? I was like, what are you doing?
I love it. I love it. Keep the game moving. It drove me nuts when they would call offsides on that. It was absolutely nuts.
So is this your dad again?
Yes, yep, he's right. I love the icing rule.
I do and I don't.
I love it.
I think sometimes, Mr. Crisco, they blow it too early, and the guy with the better angle would have definitely gotten to the puck quicker. I think if it's an absolute no-brainer, blow that whistle early. But when you've got a tired defenseman going for the puck and you've got a guy that's flying down the ice that's parallel to him, and, based on the angle, sometimes they get it wrong.
I agree with you there.
For the safety of the player, I get it. I mean, back in the day when, Lindros would destroy you behind the net when you got to the puck.
Yep.
Just a second before the whistle was blown. So, yeah. And Richard's, I think, on board with me. Richard, I feel the same way. I think the whistle's blown too early, and I think often if they had let it play naturally, the other guy would have actually gotten to the puck first.
Yeah, but I like the disadvantage that it gives the other player or the other team, because now you got tired players on the ice and you got to go all the way back to the other side.
But that would still be the case for traditional icing, right? Icing is icing.
No, but the same line had to stay on.
No. The two different topics here. One is I like that rule where if you ice the puck in general, whether it was touched by the team or not. I'm talking about the not touching of the puck.
Yeah.
Before
I'd rather that play out too. You're right.
Yeah, so I that's where I'm 50-50. I do love the fact that tired players have to stay on the ice. No, I agree with that 100%. But that could still be in play if they played out icing, if it was like a bang bang play.
Yeah.
But it's a safety issue, so I get it. And another rule I quickly want to address as we wrap up our show is the institution of the goalie trapezoid, which was in 2004, 2005. A lot of these rules were post-lockout to make the game better. It's essentially the Martin Brodeur rule.
Yep.
And before him, it was Hextall, and before Hextall, it was Tom Barrasso. Three of probably the best stick handling goalies and puck control goalies we've ever seen. But Brodeur in particular would just go way beyond where the current trapezoid is, stop the puck, and just wrist it right out of the zone. It was for the Flyers that have always been and seem to always will be a dump and chase team. It destroyed the flow of the game. So keeping the goalies kind of in that trapezoid, I think, is for the betterment of hockey. Now, especially now that those goalies are retired and you can't say, "Oh, it screwed the Devils." I think it's for ultimately the betterment of hockey. And then I would have said this even with a young Hextall on our team. Your thoughts, Nick?
This is one of the rules where I'm 50-50 on. I'm 50-50 on it because I like the fact that it keeps the goalies in the trapezoid. It keeps them protected and all that. But I also loved when the goalie got smashed in the corner, because then he becomes an actual skater. That just changed the whole level of intensity in a game. And it could change a game completely if you ran at somebody's goalie like that. And in this day and age, they take that away because they're in the trapezoid. So I'm like 50-50. I like the fact that goalies aren't getting crushed, but I also miss the fact that goalies aren't getting crushed.
Yeah, well, not only that, again, that's part of the game that has gone by.
Yes.
The goalies don't get crushed because that would lead to fighting and brawls, and it's an old era now.
I miss those days though.
Yeah, you're talking to Dan Old School Green, so I totally get you. So, ladies and gentlemen, we have a game tonight. I think we'll hold off on a post-game show for the Capitals and Penguins, Nicky Nuts. I've got some things to do tonight.
Cool.
But I will watch the game, but I don't think a post-game is in our future. So on behalf of Nicky Nuts and our colleague Vance, Mr. Smooth Crew, who had to leave early, I am Dan Green. Again, check us out on YouTube, Heat Ratio Sports, on Apple Pod. And again, as I mentioned earlier, you've got to check out NV Streams for your TV watching opportunity now. Cut that cord. Don't consider YouTube. Don't consider Hulu Plus. It's NV Streams. And when you need to get a haircut, where should they go, Nicky Nuts?
They got to go to Fuse Barbershop, baby.
Newtown, Pennsylvania.
Yep.
He is Nicky Nuts. I am Dan Green. We are Flyers Tonight, brought to you by the Heat Ratio Sport Network. Good night. Good hockey.
Let's go Flyers!
We said it all. Good night, boys.
Later.